First of 8 things, this: there is only one God. This has to start out the conversation about angels and demons. There is only, ever has been, and only ever will be one, capital G, Creator God. He alone is worthy of worship. He alone is all-knowing. He alone is all-present, all-powerful, all-holy, all-good. His sovereignty is absolute, his glory and his might without measure. He is the only being that exists in 3 persons. You're trying to understand the Trinity, even angel kind, and understanding of that will not help our finite minds. To summarize hundreds of verses and cite many, I will simply say, there is no one like him. As creator, God did not only create the natural world, but he also created a supernatural or spiritual world. God made spiritual creatures in a heavenly realm. That's the second point. God made spiritual creatures in a heavenly realm. Just as God created this natural world and filled it with natural creatures, all animal kind, beasts of the field, fish, birds, insects, people, he likewise created a spiritual world and filled it with spiritual creatures. We can refer to this spiritual world as the heavenly realm, the cosmic realm, angelic or spiritual realm, ways we can describe this. These two in the Bible are often described as heaven and earth. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That doesn't just mean the stars and our planet. No. It means supernatural and natural. When Jesus is given all authority by his Father at the ascension, I mentioned this during our prayer time this morning, what did Jesus get? All authority, this is quoting Jesus in Matthew 28, all authority in heaven and on earth exists. Does that mean amongst the stars and also on the planet? No, it means the spiritual realm and the earthly realm. All, heaven and earth, are under the authority of Jesus. He is the King of kings, Lord of lords, the God of gods. There is no spirit that is higher than him. He has absolute, complete authority in both heavenly and earthly realms. If you've not stopped to think about this, blow your mind in thinking about this. There is an entire other realm. We could call it another reality. We might call it another dimension that exists. It is another God-created ecosystem that coexists in parallel with our world. This is mind-numbing if you think about this. This is incredible to pause and to ponder. The Bible tells us that while the spiritual realm is invisible to us, our natural eyes can't see it. It is every bit as real. Now, just an important thing I want to make sure you're hearing there. God did not exist in the spiritual world and then create the natural one. God created both the spiritual and the natural world. He is outside of both. And he's the only being that exists, that is. Sometimes God gives people in the Bible glimpses of the heavenly realm. We refer to these as visions, usually in the Bible. You might think of Isaiah in the Old Testament. It's given a vision of the temple. You might think of Ezekiel, who gets a vision of God seated on the throne and angelic beings. You might be thinking of John in the New Testament, who wrote an entire book called Revelation, which is this giant, 22-chapter long vision of heavenly things, things that exist in the cosmic realm behind the scenes of what's happening naturally on earth. Incredible things that we see there. Even Jesus' disciples on the Mount of Transfiguration were given just a little peek behind the scenes to see the spiritual realm. Perhaps my favorite Old Testament story that speaks to this regards the prophet Elisha in the Old Testament. He was in a walled city called Dothan with his servant, and they woke up one morning to look out and see an entire army of Syrians surrounding this walled city. And his servant starts freaking out. Oh man, we're going to die. And Elisha prays, and he says, God, open his eyes that he may see. You guys remember the story? When his servant stands there and God does a work so that the eyes that could not see the invisible realm in his servant could see, what did he see? An army of fiery chariots and soldier angels surrounding them on the mountains. It's awesome. Nothing changed in that moment, except now the servant could see what was always there. The spiritual realm exists in parallel with our natural. This means that there are angels and demons near us all the time. This means that there are things we cannot see or sense with our natural or physical senses that are around all the time. Next point you need to know, there are different kinds of spiritual creatures. There are different kinds of spiritual creatures. While we use the words angel and demon, we use those words, the Bible describes many different kinds of spiritual creatures. We might use the word species. There are different species of angel kind. Some of them are just given titles, but others we see are very, very different beings altogether. So here, in addition to the word angel and demon being used in the Bible, we also see the Bible reveal there are angels called archangels, seraphim, cherubim. On the negative side, there are Baals, Nephilim, Anakim, Rephaim. Those are just to name a few of some of the names of different species of angel that exists. Not only are there different names and different classes, angelic beings are often described in visions as looking very different from one another. Have you ever paused and read through some of those visions of the Old Testament? In fact, one thing that's fascinating to do, and you can do it this afternoon, you could go home and just copy-paste some parts of Revelation or Isaiah or Ezekiel of the description of those spiritual beings, drop it into an AI generator, an image generator, and see what pops out. Craziness. Because the way that the Bible describes these angelic beings are so different from one another. Some just look like a man. Some look like a locust. Some have faces on all sides of their head. Some have 6 wings and somehow they're still flying. 2 are flying, 2 are covering the face, 2 are covering their body. Some have the face of a bull. Some have the face of an eagle. The whole Bible describes these angelic figures in very, very unique and different ways. Some have eyes covering their entire body. That's kind of freaky. Even demon kind, Daniel saw in a vision, for example, beasts that were representing demonic figures. And these beasts looked very different from one another. And oftentimes you can tell that he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know how to describe these things because the visions usually use language of like. Well, he's like a lion. It's like a bear. It's like a leopard with 4 heads. It's like a dragon. The throne was seated on something like glass, but there was something like a rainbow made of emeralds. This is the way that heavenly visions are described because there's no words for it. There's nothing in creation and in nature that I can attribute this to. So the best I can do is use like language. It's like that. There are different kinds of angelic beings. There's a whole cosmic zoology of angelic beings that exist. And what do these angels and angel kind do? 4th point, angels were designed to serve God's purposes. I know, very generic statement here. I follow with me here, okay? Angels were designed to serve God's purposes. This is very important. It's not as though they're just aliens living on distant planets or something, and God, hey, what do you know? There's some beings here. Let's have these beings serve. They were designed by God to work for Him, to serve God's purposes. Just like people, angel kind was made for a reason. Now, the Bible does tell us that the main purpose of angel kind is that they would all be ministering spirits sent out to serve for the sake of those who are to inherit salvation. That's Hebrews chapter 1, verse 14. They are all ministering, that's servant spirits, sent out to serve for the sake of those who are to inherit salvation. So chiefly, they are to play a role in God's plan of redemption, worked on our behalf. But there are many different kinds of tasks that angelic creatures might have to carry out. And God made different kinds of angels to fulfill many different roles for that ultimate purpose. Now, every year I read through the Bible, and I just finished reading through the book of Revelation as we wrapped up December. And I was just taken aback once again. How many different roles or jobs or tasks were given to different kinds of angels in the book of Revelation? Here's a few. There are messengers. There are those who are guardians, trumpeters. There are singer angels. That's what they do. That's what they just sing. Heralds, those who just say stuff loudly. That's their job. They just say things. There are generals, commanders, and soldiers. There are those who hold bowls of wrath or judgment. Some control the wind. Others had dominion over the sea or rivers. Some over sun or moon or stars. Some served literally as prison guards over demons. All of these different roles are given to angels, but they're all serving ultimately God's primary purpose of working redemption for his image bearers, humankind. You know, in the Christian church, we've each been given unique spiritual gifts to employ for the good of the church. I'm thinking 1 Corinthians 12 was one of my favorite places. We're all members of the same body, but each member is made for different things. A hand is different than a foot, that's different than an eye, different than an arm. And all of them work together for the good of the body. Angel kind was designed similarly. Different strengths, different unique purposes that all head towards the ultimate purpose. Angel kind's just like that. And just as people can submit to and obey the purpose that God has given us, or not, angel kind can choose to obey or disobey God and his purpose for them.